Wait, did Claressa Shields seriously just snap? Because the internet is absolutely losing it right now after rumors started flying that she reacted way too strongly to some news involving Papoose. And somehow, of course, Remy Ma ends up right back in the middle of the chaos again. Now hold on a second. Nothing here is actually confirmed. No official statements, no verified clips proving what people keep claiming. But obviously that hasn't stopped social media from running wild with one explosive storyline. Did Claressa Shields really feel betrayed? And if she did, then what exactly went down behind the scenes to trigger that kind of reaction? Because according to online chatter, there was supposedly a moment, maybe on live, off-camera, or through indirect comments, where her tone shifted from calm to something way more intense. We're talking frustration, possible anger, even words people are reading as signs she felt completely blindsided. But here's the real question. Betrayed by what exactly? Is this about old connections popping back up? A misunderstanding that got completely blown out of proportion, or something deeper no one has fully explained yet? Because if this is just another rumor, then why is it hitting this hard? And if it's not, then we might be looking at a situation that just jumped from complicated to straight-up explosive overnight. Yeah, this one. It's getting serious fast. Alright, before we go any further, let's clear something up. Everything you're about to hear is based on online speculation, viral conversations, and completely unverified claims. There has been zero official confirmation from Claressa Shields, Papoose, or Remy Ma. But despite that, the story is spreading like wildfire and people are locked in. So here's how this whole situation started gaining serious attention. Over the past few days, social media has been flooded with claims that Claressa Shields may have had a strong emotional reaction to something involving Papoose. Now, there's still no confirmed clip showing exactly what people are describing and no direct statement explaining what actually happened, but somehow that hasn't slowed anything down. If anything, it's done the exact opposite. Because the moment a few posts hinted that her reaction felt a little off, people instantly obsessed over one word that kept showing up everywhere. Betrayed. And let's be honest, that word isn't light. It carries emotion, history, and drama way deeper than what's visible on the surface. So when people started linking that word to Claressa Shields, the whole situation suddenly felt 10 times more serious. Even though, once again, there's zero confirmed proof she ever said it. But let's be real, that didn't matter. The second the idea hit the internet, it did exactly what it always does. It ran wild with it. Now suddenly, the focus wasn't just about a possible reaction anymore. It turned into why that reaction might have happened. And that's exactly where Papoose gets pulled right into the center of the mess. Because his name being tied to this kind of narrative instantly raised big questions. Not small ones, big ones. People started asking, what did he do? Was something happening behind the scenes? Did everyone miss something? And those questions didn't just appear out of nowhere. They come from the history attached to his name, especially when you bring Remy Ma into it. Let's be real for a second. The relationship between Remy Ma and Papoose has always been one of the most talked about dynamics in hip-hop. For years, they were seen as the definition of loyalty. Through highs, lows, and public struggles, they stood together in a way that made people believe their bond was untouchable. That's the image people still remember. But over time, things started to feel a little different. Not in some loud, headline-grabbing way, but through small, subtle shifts the internet somehow always notices. Fewer appearances together, less visible interaction, and a slight change in how often they publicly showed support for each other. Now on its own, that doesn't automatically mean anything. People grow, situations change, privacy increases, it happens all the time. But when you mix that with current rumors, those tiny details suddenly start looking way bigger than they actually are. And that's exactly what's happening here. Because right around the same time people started talking about Claressa Shields' alleged reaction, another rumor picked up speed claiming that Remy Ma might be pregnant. And once again, no confirmation, no official statement, just pure speculation that started on social media and spread fast. But here's where it gets interesting. It wasn't just the rumor itself grabbing attention. It was the timing, because both stories started trending at the exact same moment. And when that happens, people don't see two separate stories anymore. They see one connected situation. Now suddenly, the internet isn't just asking what happened, it's trying to build a full storyline. A possible emotional reaction, a rumored pregnancy, and one shared connection through Papoose. And just like that, a perfect little triangle gets created. Now is that triangle actually real? Nobody knows. But the perception of it has already taken off. Because once people feel like there's a connection, they start hunting for anything that supports it. Old clips start resurfacing. Past interviews get picked apart. Even random interactions that meant nothing before are suddenly being analyzed like they hold hidden meaning. And the more people look, the more they convince themselves they are finding something, even when there's no real proof. That's the tricky part about situations like this, because everything starts to feel important, even when it probably isn't. Now let's go back to Claressa Shields for a second, because her alleged reaction is what gave this entire story its emotional backbone. According to people online, there was a moment, whether during a live stream or some recent appearance, where her energy seemed to shift. Not in a dramatic, obvious way, but just enough for people to notice. Some say she paused. Others claim her tone changed slightly. And then you've got people who swear she looked genuinely upset, like she was processing something unexpected in real time. Now, did that actually happen? There's still no confirmed evidence proving it clearly, but the idea of it is what's spreading, because people trust what they think they saw. And when multiple viewers share the same interpretation, it starts to sound believable, even without proof. That's exactly how narratives like this grow. Not always from facts, but from shared perception. And once you add emotion into the mix, everything gets even more intense. Because an emotional reaction, whether real or completely misunderstood, instantly makes the story feel more real and way more relatable. It makes people feel like they are watching something authentic, something unscripted, something real. And that's where it gets dangerous, because once a story feels real, people stop questioning it. They start believing it, or at least thinking it might be true. And honestly, that's all it takes. Now here's where things get even messier. Because as this narrative keeps growing, it starts shaping how people see everyone involved. Not based on confirmed facts, but pure assumptions. Remy Ma gets dragged into a rumor she hasn't even addressed. Papoose gets pulled back into drama people thought was long over. And Claressa Shields is being talked about like she had a full emotional reaction, whether she actually did or not. That's a lot of pressure for a story that still isn't confirmed. But that's how viral speculation works. It moves fast, spreads everywhere, and doesn't wait for facts to catch up. At this point, people aren't just asking questions anymore, they are forming opinions. Some are convinced there's truth behind it all. Others think it's completely exaggerated. And then there are those just sitting back, watching closely, waiting to see what happens next. Because one thing is obvious, this story isn't slowing down anytime soon. Not yet. As long as there are no clear answers, curiosity stays alive. And when curiosity is high, the conversation only gets louder. Which brings us to the biggest question right now. Is something actually happening behind the scenes? Or are we just watching the internet build a story that feels real but isn't fully proven? Because no matter the answer, this situation is only getting bigger. And what people started digging into next, that's when things really started escalating. And this is exactly where everything goes to another level. Because the moment people sense even a tiny chance of a bigger story, they don't just watch, they start investigating. So now this isn't just about a possible reaction or a random rumor. It's turned into something much bigger. People online are treating this like a full investigation, breaking down moments, comparing timelines, and trying to piece together a storyline that connects everything. Not confirmed, just connected. And the one thing everyone keeps coming back to is timing. Because according to what's circulating, the alleged reaction from Claressa Shields and the rumors about Remy Ma didn't just happen randomly. They started trending at the exact same time. Now that could be a coincidence, but to a lot of people, it doesn't feel like one. And once that idea took over, everything started getting analyzed. Old videos being reposted, past interviews being clipped, and even the smallest social media interactions being picked apart like they hold some hidden meaning. Now, does any of that actually prove anything? Not really. But when people are trying to make sense of something, they connect anything that looks even slightly relevant. And that's exactly what's happening here. Some users claim that in recent appearances, Claressa Shields seemed a bit more serious than usual. Not necessarily upset, just more controlled, more careful with what she says. Others believe there were moments where she avoided certain topics completely, especially when things got too personal. Now again, these are just observations, not confirmations. But in situations like this, even the smallest change in behavior starts to feel important because people are already searching for meaning. Then there's the Papoose angle. His name sitting right in the center of this narrative is raising even more questions. Because if something did happen, real or misunderstood, what role does he actually play? Some discussions online suggest there could have been more going on behind the scenes than what was visible publicly. Not something dramatic or confirmed, but something subtle, low-key, something people didn't notice until now. And that idea alone is enough to keep curiosity alive, because people are drawn to the possibility of something hidden, something not meant to be seen. Now mix that with a Remy Ma rumor and suddenly everything feels even more connected. Instead of looking at each situation separately, people are building one big storyline to explain it all. A rumored pregnancy, an alleged emotional reaction, and one shared connection through a single person. It's the kind of setup that feels almost too perfect. And when something feels that perfect, people start believing there has to be something behind it. But here's where it gets complicated. The more this narrative grows, the more it depends on interpretation instead of actual proof. And that line between interpretation and reality starts to blur. Now let's talk about public reaction, because this is where things really split. On one side, you have people who are fully convinced something happened. They believe the timing isn't random. They believe the reaction, even if unclear, means something. And they think all of this is pointing toward a situation that just hasn't been revealed yet. These are the people analyzing every detail, connecting every possibility, and treating this like a story that's already halfway confirmed. But on the other side, you've got skeptics, and they are not buying it. They are pointing out the lack of real evidence, the absence of clear statements, and how assumptions are stacking up without anything solid underneath. They are asking questions like, where's the proof? Did she actually say anything? Or are people just reacting to how it looked? And those questions matter, because right now everything being discussed is based on interpretation, not clear facts. But here's the reality of the internet. Once a narrative starts gaining attention, it doesn't need proof to survive. It just needs engagement. And this story has plenty of that. Every post, every comment, every reaction feeds the cycle. The more people engage, the more the algorithm pushes it. And the more it gets pushed, the more people see it. Then new viewers jump in with their own opinions, their own theories, their own takes. And just like that, the story keeps growing. Not stronger in facts, but stronger in visibility. Now there's another layer people are starting to notice. Not whether the story is true or false, but how fast it spread. Because if you really think about it, this entire narrative came together incredibly fast. A possible reaction, a rumor, a connection. And suddenly it feels like a complete storyline. No official sources, no confirmed timeline, just pure momentum. And that leads to a bigger question. Are we actually watching something real unfold? Or are we just watching the internet build a whole story in real time? Because sometimes the speculation itself becomes the real show. The way people react, the way they connect dots, the way they turn tiny moments into headline drama. And right now, that machine is running at full speed. But through all this noise, one thing hasn't changed. Nobody involved has stepped up to confirm or deny anything. And that silence? Oh, people are reading into it in completely different ways. Some call it suspicious. Others think it simply means there's nothing to say. But either way, it's keeping the story alive, because as long as there's no clear answer, people will keep searching for one. They'll keep watching, analyzing, and trying to piece together what actually happened. And that's what makes this situation so unpredictable. Because at any moment, everything could shift. A statement, a post, even a small reaction could flip the entire narrative. And when that happens, it either all comes together or completely falls apart. But until then, the speculation keeps growing, the reactions keep building, and the story keeps evolving, because whatever happens next could either confirm everything people believe or prove none of it was real at all. And now we've reached that point where things either peak or completely collapse. Because once a story gets this big, this emotional, and this widespread, it doesn't just fade away quietly. Right now, everything sits in that strange space where nothing is confirmed, yet everything feels intense. And that tension is already creating real impact, because even without proof, people are forming strong opinions about Claressa Shields, Papoose, and Remy Ma. Not based on facts, but based on how the story is being told online. And that's where things get tricky, because once opinions form, they don't easily change, even when new information shows up later. Now think about the pressure this creates. Every move, every post, every appearance from anyone involved is being watched closely. People are analyzing tone, body language, even the smallest details. And when that happens, even normal behavior starts to look suspicious. That's how quickly perception can flip. Now let's talk about what happens next. Because realistically, there are only a few directions this can go. One option is that someone finally speaks out. A clear statement, whether confirming or denying anything, would instantly shift the conversation. It would give people something real to react to instead of pure speculation. If it's denied, the focus turns to how the rumor spread so fast. If anything gets confirmed, even slightly, then suddenly everything people were saying starts to feel real. But there's another possibility. Nobody says anything at all. And believe it or not, that can keep the story alive even longer, because silence creates space. And in that space, people fill in the gaps themselves. They assume, they guess, they build even more theories. And sometimes those theories spread faster than the original rumor. Now here's the bigger problem. When something like this goes viral, it doesn't stay online. It starts affecting real reputations. Names get tied to narratives. Moments get taken out of context. Even unrelated situations somehow get dragged into the same story. That's how powerful viral speculation really is. It creates a version of events that feels real, even when it hasn't been proven. And once that version is out there, it's almost impossible to fully erase. Now add social media into the mix. Algorithms push whatever people engage with, and right now, people are heavily engaged. Comments, reactions, debates, all of it keeps the story moving. And the more it moves, the more people see it. And once new people see it, they form opinions, often without knowing the full picture. That's how stories spiral out of control. But here's where things get even more intense. People aren't just watching anymore, they are waiting. Waiting for a response. Waiting for that one moment. Waiting for something that either confirms everything or shuts it all down. And that moment could come at any time. A live stream, a post, an interview, even one small comment that feels just a little too direct to ignore. And when that happens, everything changes. The narrative either locks in or resets completely. But until that moment shows up, we're stuck in this phase of uncertainty. And that uncertainty is exactly what keeps people hooked. Because nobody wants to miss the moment when the truth finally drops, whatever that truth turns out to be. Now take a step back for a second. Why do stories like this spread so fast? Why do they hit this hard? Is it because people actually care about the truth? Or is it because the mix of emotion, drama, and mystery makes it impossible to ignore? Because let's be honest, this situation has everything. Strong emotions, familiar names, possible conflict, and just enough uncertainty to keep people guessing. It's the kind of story that feels real, even when it isn't fully confirmed. And that's exactly why it's so powerful. But at the end of the day, one thing still hasn't changed. There are no official confirmations, no clear statements, just a narrative growing off speculation and interpretation. And until that changes, that's all this is. So now it all comes down to one question. Who speaks first? Because when that finally happens, and it will, everything shifts. That's when the story either becomes reality or fades out as another viral moment people believed way too quickly. But until then, the conversation keeps going, the theories keep building, and the attention isn't going anywhere. Because right now, this story is still unfolding and nowhere near finished. So after everything we've broken down, all the rumors, reactions, timing, and unanswered questions, one thing is clear. People are watching closely, and nobody wants to miss what happens next. Because if there's even a small chance something real is happening behind the scenes, this could explode into something much bigger than expected. But if not, then this just proves how fast the internet can turn nothing into everything. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Claressa Shields actually felt betrayed? Or is this just social media overthinking everything? And honestly, do you think all of this is connected, or just perfect timing making it look that way? Let me know what you think in the comments, because this story is still wide open. And if you're into viral drama, real-time breakdowns, and stories everyone's talking about, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next.